Greetings, system failure listeners. Nate here in the great state of Maine. Brian over yonder in the also great state of Rhode Island. Brian, what is the good word this week?
Hey man, nothing too crazy going on this week. A little short duration between podcast recordings here, eh?
Yes, to raise the curtain a little bit on the operations going on behind the scenes. I got to fly down to Florida on Friday. This is Wednesday night. We usually record on Sunday mornings, but as I'll be in the Sunshine State, that will be impossible. So all the news you hear on the podcast today will be about 5 days stale by the time you get this. But we didn't want to miss an episode, so we are here with the news for today, which is Wednesday, August the 12th. Now, people out there in podcast land might be wondering what kind of an insane person would schedule a trip to Florida in the month of August, arguably the most desolate and roiling hot of months in the entire calendar year down there in Florida. And the answer for that is real simple: $190 round trip tickets from Portland, Maine to Orlando nonstop. With the price being that, I mean, obviously those prices reflect the fact that no one in their right mind wants to go to Florida during August. So that's what we're doing down there. So that will be very, very interesting to see. Trace has always said that she would love to have lived in Florida. And I always tell Tracy, my lovely fiance, of course, I always tell her, you got to just go down there during the heat and let me know, get back to me if you still think Florida's a wonderful place to live. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to go down there in the absolute peak of the insane heat season. The heat, of course, was one of my major motivations for moving out of the Sunshine State and moving back to Maine in 2010. So it'll be interesting to see how hot it seems to me after, it's been 17 years since I last experienced the month of August in Florida. Anyhow, looking forward to getting down there and seeing the crew again, and hopefully the heat won't be too intense.
Well, Nate, it seems breathtakingly hot as it is up here in the Northeast, and I can only imagine what kind of inferno awaits you flying 1,000 miles south.
1,500 miles once if you're going from Maine all the way down to all the way to the swamp. But yeah, anyway, that will be a lot of fun. Hopefully there'll be many pools to cool off in while we're down there. So anyway, it's early. It's not early. It is an inopportune moment to fly down there. But with the for the low price of $195 round trip, you can scarcely argue with that logic. Other big news today, August the 12th, 2026, there was a total eclipse in Spain today. Did you hear about this one, Brian?
I did see some coverage about it. I think the Pink Floyd were actually tweeting about it is what it was, or at least their Twitter account.
Well, that would make sense. The Floyd have always been astronomically preoccupied, shall we say?
There is no dark side of the moon. As a matter of fact, it's all dark. Is what any listener of Dark Side of the Moon will recognize.
Yeah, the little voiceovers are they're the calling card of the Pink Floyd. At least that was the case. I guess that's got to be Roger's thing because he still puts that in his songs to this day, Brian.
I think that was certainly his contribution. He got a bunch of people and came into the studio and recorded some tidbits. I guess one of them was Paul McCartney, but it was never used. But it certainly spices up the album.
Well, back in 2024, we had a total eclipse blow through the northeast region. This total eclipse, I guess it swept down from the Arctic Ocean, near like Greenland towards the North Pole, and then curved and swept out across the northern part of Spain before sunset finally cut it short just off the coast of Spain and the Mediterranean there. But do you remember? Did you get to see the eclipse in 2024, Brian?
I ended up working, and it was in roadside assistance, and just the nature of a bunch of people driving out to the woods of Maine to try to view this thing, or the woods of all New England, really, meant that it was like an all hands on deck situation for coordinating roadside assistance. So I did not make it out.
I had met our dad out in Errol, New Hampshire that day. We just drove. You couldn't see it from southern Maine. You had to drive north a little bit. So we drove due north in Errol, New Hampshire, just across the border with Maine there. But I'd never seen a full solar eclipse before. And I'd seen like a partial one When I was in fourth grade, we had a partial solar eclipse that we all got the eclipse glasses and went out onto the playground to view. You must have, let's see, you must have been in kindergarten that year, Brian, I want to say. Maybe you remember this?
Yeah, I remember. Well, mostly I remember the aluminum foil glasses like being around more than I remember the actual eclipse itself.
Well, I was just not prepared, having seen partial solar eclipses before. The total eclipse, it's just weird. Like the air cools down, like it gets really quiet. I mean, I think that the birds twittering in the trees go quiet, and obviously it gets dark. It's a really eerie sensation. I can see why the eclipse was an occasion of certain religious moment for the ancients. It really is a strange phenomenon, made all the stranger by the odd fact that the moon is the same apparent size as the sun when viewed from the surface of the earth. That is a really strange coincidence, Brian.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the moon really only needs to be like approximately the same size as the sun for the phenomena to work. And so I'm like unclear exactly how perfect it is supposed to be. But, I just have to the casual observer, they are like extremely close to being the same size in any case.
Yeah, it's exactly the right size to just give you the corona effect, the halo around the you can just see the the outer edge of the sun's atmosphere where the sun rays come from. So that's really really odd, and that's what's made a bunch of strange things about the moon. I guess that during the Apollo programs in the late 60s and early 70s, they crashed something into the moon intentionally, and I guess the moon reverberated or rang. I'll enter this little incident into the chat GPT here and see what it says.
I'm fascinated to see what our AI overlord has to say on the topic.
Yeah. Yes, you always have to remember the AI overlord is part of the walls that make up the matrix. But here's what it says. Here's what it's saying here. During the Apollo 12 missions in 1969, astronauts set up sensitive seismometers on the lunar surface. After returning to the command module, the crew intentionally jettisoned the lunar module's ascent stage and commanded it to crash back onto the moon's surface to generate a controlled seismic impact. When the module hit, scientists expected a brief, sharp shockwave similar to an earthquake. Instead, the seismometers registered vibrations that built up slowly, peaked, and continued reverberating for over an hour. So that's the weird readings that NASA got off the moon, and that's led to, on the darkest corners of the internet, that's led to conspiracy theories that perhaps the moon is hollow, right? Like it's constructed, like it's not a natural object, like it's some kind of an artificial satellite. What's the line from Star Wars? That's no moon, that's a space station. So I don't know, man. I don't know. It is very, very interesting that the moon is tidally locked. Like you brought up the dark side of the moon a moment ago. Of course, the orbit, the period of rotation for the moon matches its period of rotation around the Earth. So you get one side of the moon is always facing away from the Earth, and one side is always facing us. Now, it could be that we have a new moon from our perspective here on Earth, and the dark side of the moon is in fact fully illuminated by the sun's light. The dark side of the moon refers just to the fact that we cannot see it, not that it is always dark there, of course. So anyway, that was what was swirling around my head today, Brian, when news of this, you could see all the people in the news, like the Wall Street Journal had pictures of people in those same eclipse glasses that we had back when we were in grade school, and again back in 2024 when you were, I guess, slaving in the salt mines over at your place of employment, but obviously everyone had similar glasses back in 24. So yeah, I don't know, man. The whole experience is a lot more mystical than I would have thought, these total solar eclipses.
Yeah, I mean, I think the explanation that like I heard like in science class in elementary school was that something crashed into the Earth and the debris went off and formed the that thing in the sky that we all see at night. And I don't think the ring like makes any sense whatsoever with that explanation. And I guess it's my intuition that the moon is basically one of these monoliths from 2001: A Space Odyssey that is somehow responsible for our development, from a simian apes to the more upright bipeds that are speaking into the cans right now.
Yeah, that's us. Yeah, man, I don't know. Boy, it's a tough one. It does seem like, the great theme here with system failure is that reality itself is a product of the ruling classes. And so during periods of economic dysfunction and destabilization, those realities also become unstable and start to collapse on themselves. And I just wonder if if our conception of the moon is one of these things that's going to be very different when the authorities have all been discredited, and we're in a as the ruling classes lose control of the domestic political situation. I wonder just how much our conception of bedrock reality will change. I feel like the moon could be part of that.
Well, I mean, I've long fancied that there are like alien bases on the dark side of the moon. I saw Elon Musk, he's trying to make like moon base station Alpha into a thing, and thinks that we're going to be flying out there in the nearish future, which, yeah, I mean, there's like these Van Allen radiation belts that conspiracy theorists are always going on about. And people have crazy ideas about the Earth being flat and whatnot. I mean, if we can actually like go to the moon, I don't know, that would be crazy. Maybe it'll happen in our lifetimes. But I guess that would be reinforcing to the more mundane narratives regarding our existence.
Yeah, the most famous remote viewer in American history, this guy Ingo Swann. He has these wild. The guy was like employed by CIA. Ended up coming out about the whole what do you call it, remote viewing program. And this program was the subject of that movie, The Men Who Stare at Goats, with George Clooney, that came out in like 2002 or 2003 or 2004, one of those years. But this guy Ingo Swann, right? He I think it was Ingo Swann who found the Russian bomber in the African jungles that had crashed, or maybe it was he who identified was able to like remote view the Russian Typhoon class submarines before they were anyone had real knowledge of them. But there are like real victories in the CIA remote viewing program. And anyhow, this character of Ingo Swann talks about being like remote viewing to the other side of the moon, where there are like alien superstructures and whatnot. So I don't know, it sounds completely crazy to me. But the moon is definitely, since time immemorial, the moon has been a subject of much mystery, and I guess that even in our super scientific year of 2026, the moon remains a subject of much mystery and speculation.
Well, I think it's either the monolith hypothesis, either by happenstance, and so it just like worked out that the moon is in its position. I think it just like it must lend to like our understanding of self, that there's like this sun and then the moon, and like our conceptions of like good and evil, I guess. Anyway,
what makes you say the good and evil part? You mentioned the monoliths a short time ago, and indeed those monoliths were portrayed by Stanley Kubrick in that movie as being integral to the development of the human species. Like it was the monolith that inspired us to first start using tools. That's how the movie. What makes you say good and evil exactly? Just curious on that one.
I don't know. Maybe good and evil isn't the best example, but like certainly any amateur astronomist can look up at the sky and observe that the moon moves in phases, and use that like in your like farming and whatnot.
I see.
And obviously like probably like the tides, I imagine, have something to do with like our evolution. And you get these fish making a break for land somehow to find food and whatnot, and like tide pools and whatnot are sorts of sustenance and whatnot. And certainly sun worship is a big deal.
Yes,
I guess I don't hear as much about moon worship, so I don't know, maybe that's not the best way to put it. but it just does seem like a part of our I don't know, psychological evolution or something.
I've heard it pointed out that tidal pools are integral to life, like escaping the oceans and making it onto land. Right, so you can have a sea full of creatures, but at some point you have to make the jump out of the primordial seas and onto land. And a part of this idea that the moon is integral to our development as a species is the idea that what you just said, Brian, that without tide pools, right, without those intermediate, without a zone that is sometimes wet and sometimes dry, it would be very difficult for life to make that transition. And of course, we all know that the tides are caused by the differential of moon's gravity at different points along the surface of the Earth. So that's a good one. I'd forgotten about that little nugget, Brian.
Yes.
All right. Well, what do you think? Should we bring the news back down to earth a little bit here and talk about the Democrats' handicaps going into the midterms in November? Brian, you may have seen we had surprise upset last. Well, upset is upset the right word? But the Wisconsin governor's race, the primary for the Wisconsin governor's race, the DSA candidate actually lost yesterday. It seems like it's been wall to wall DSA wins for the past since the primary season began in June. But this woman Hong, she was up double digits in the polls and ended up losing 39.8 to 39.4. So that was interesting, I guess. I had hoped, I'm rooting for like DSA all the way. I'm hoping that the Bernie Sanders movement, which we got distracted from in 2016 and never came to fruition, I'm hopeful that all of this excitement behind the DSA candidates here in 2026 signifies a change in the wind.
Well, I mean, the good news is if your reporting here is to be believed, Hong only won by 0.4% of the vote.
Lost by, yeah.
Thank you. I mean, I was listening to Ryan Grimm and Emily Jasinski talk about this on Breaking Points today, and I guess Hong there, I don't know, she made some kind of statement against Thanksgiving and was, well, there's this whole like woke 2.0 versus woke 1.0 thing seems to have clawed its way into the zeitgeist, and this is going to be something we have to hear about for election cycles to come.
Did Ocasio-Cortez coin that? Didn't she have some comments? I don't know what the comments were, but it filtered through to me tangentially, like in this very conversation with you, Brian. Isn't she the one that talked about woke 1.0 being a disaster or something?
She definitely made some kind of comments about it. I don't know if she's the progenitor or not. It's hard to imagine that. I don't know like what woke 2.0 is supposed to entail. Because woke politics in general seem like a distraction from like economic issues.
That's it.
But I guess they want to rebrand themselves as no longer crazy.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, Brian. I think this idea of trying to, like, I mean, we talked about in the last episode, but like you could just run the Google Ngram analysis and just see how words like woke or intersectionality became really, really popular in like 2011, 2012, just as the Occupy Wall Street movements were being bulldozed in synchronously by the Obama administration. And it does seem like we would rather, like certain well-heeled politicians, possibly like Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, who I guess just dumped her poor boyfriend. I guess like what the donors would like to do is have a redux of the woke madness of the 2010s, so that we can continue to go round and round on that cul-de-sac rather than actually addressing the economic situation, which is ever so beneficial for the donors to the Democratic Party donors, but ever so deleterious to the Democratic Party voters. So I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Brian. That's I think that has to be what this is. We don't want the woke to completely be discredited. We just want to modify it so we can keep rolling forward with this these endless boutique custom identities for ourselves, and go round and round on that instead of talking about hammering the wealthy with taxes.
And I guess that Bernie Sanders and AOC and sort of the Democratic socialist bigwigs I don't know if AOC is a Democratic Socialist, but in any case, I guess she did not have any endorsement of the Democratic Party at large, which seems to be co-opting Mamdani and others, or I don't know. I guess there's a bit of a civil war afoot, but it seems at least that Mamdani has a solid foothold.
To your point, across the border from Wisconsin, Minnesota, the Bernie endorsed candidates Peggy Flanagan and Matt Little did win their seats they won their primary contest, I should say, for the races for Minnesota state governor and the Minnesota, House seat primaries, respectively. So that just lends credence to what you're saying, Brian.
Yeah, and I guess losing the support of Mamdani and other Democratic socialists is well, man, I've already forgotten his name. Who is the senator in Maine there who had to drop out amid sexual?
Plattner.
That's the one.
Already forgotten.
Yeah. So anyway, those are some good wins for the Democratic Socialists, though, in those other contests.
Yeah. Yep. I'll be curious to see how this all shakes out in November. Like I say, would love to see the old Bernie movement. What do you want? Resurrected, let's say, from 2016. It's only been a decade. Better late than never. And Brian, also on the topic of hammering the wealthy with taxes, of course, we've got Mr. Mamdani and his pet-a-terre tax going off in New York. I was amused to see a highly disparaging article about Mr. Mamdani in the ever propagandist Wall Street Journal. I thought I would just read a few paragraphs from their piece on Mr. Mamdani, which came out today, August the 12th. The headline here is Mamdani's honeymoon with New York is over. The sub-headline reads, New York City mayor faces messy rollout of pet-a-terre tax and fraying relations with local politicians. So just the opening salvo here from the Wall Street Journal is, Zoran Mamdani was riding high as the mayor of New York City earlier this summer after fulfilling a campaign pledge to put a new tax on the wealthy, flexing his political might with successful endorsements of 3 progressive congressional candidates and handing the victorious New York Knicks the keys to the city. Now, after a streak of good fortune, Mamdani is facing growing discontent from New Yorkers upset with his anti-Israel rhetoric and slights against the business community. Efforts to fulfill some of his marquee campaign pledges have stumbled, including the messy launch of the pet-a-terre tax. His relationship with the city council is fraying. The latest setback for the mayor came this week when a judge swiftly paused a new tax on luxury second homes after a group of residents, including one of Mamdani's own supporters, filed a lawsuit accusing the city of botching the rollout. The city quickly appealed the decision, automatically putting the lower court order on hold, but not before the judge criticized the administration's handling of the matter. Well, that gives you a flavor of what the Wall Street Journal means to convey with their supposedly neutral piece. There's just the language is like, oh man, just Mamdani's having all this trouble. But we did have a new Sierra poll drop this morning showing that 69% of New Yorkers have a favorable view of Mayor Mamdani. That number is up 11 points since June. So it's like, is it going as badly as they say? I think rather not. It's just the Wall Street Journal readers are the well-heeled people who are going to have to pay these taxes. That's why you get that bizarre perspective on the pages of that venerable paper. But it's interesting. It really does seem to have some panties in a bunch, Brian, down in New York City.
Yeah. Well, that is certainly in line with everything I've heard. I mean, I haven't seen like a people's uprising against Mamdani, and it does seem like the critiques come from places like the Wall Street Journal. It seems like our boy Dave Smith, right? I mean, I think the last time I heard him, or maybe it was, his sidekick Robbie was saying that, they prefer Hillary Clinton to like Bernie Sanders, which seems absolutely crazy to me. But as I'm fond of saying, the debate should be between the socialist right and the socialist left and the libertarian right. And so Yeah, unclear if people on the right are like valuing these centrist Democrats over the Democratic Socialists. Um, but it'll be interesting to see how this tax works out, and I don't know what's in store for the future of New York here.
A couple of notes on the rolling out of the Peditier tax. Ken Griffin, who was a noted villain of the ape movement on the Wall Street Bets board back in 2020. The guy runs Citadel Capital. It's one of these massive, I don't know if they're a hedge fund, one of these huge institutional investors. And you may recall that Mamdani had shot a video outside of his home using his ridiculous, lavish Manhattan, residence as an example of someone who's going to have to pay this tax. And Griffin tried to move Citadel to Miami to escape the tax, only to face a revolt from his own employees who all said, yeah, no, we're not moving to Florida. Sorry, dude. You can't just move your business as easily as you thought easily as you thought you could. And that really does show that the first line defense against the notion of a wealth tax is that, well, all the wealthy people will just leave. But man, it is never that simple. It's like we have this whole population of people in this country, and like some people in this country work and produce and other people consume, and most people both work to produce things and consume things. But we do have some freeloaders who do not work, but yet we still want them to be provisioned. I'm thinking now about the very young and the very old, but we also have a bunch of people who don't have to work. They just make their money by owning property, and they're also freeloading on the system, right? It's like you can't just it's like the way that this works, right? We have like our whole population, we have some producers and some consumers, and the economy is the game to figure out who gets to do the most consuming and who gets to do the least work, right? You and I are incentivized to do the little amount of work as we want to work as little as possible, but consume as much as we can. That's everyone's default goal in the economy. And so just when you think about like passive, like making your money on property, right? Those are real cash flows, like people's rent, for example. And like you just can't move the apartment complexes out of New York City. Like a lot of these assets that people own to make money to excuse themselves from work are not movable. Most of them are not movable. And more to the point, if you want to do business in New York City, you're going to want access to that huge market of consumers, right? So it's like it's just not as simple that we just can't tax people. It's just too hard. It's never been the case, and I love that Mayor Mamdani is proving as much down the coast in New York City.
Yes. There's nothing like having all of your wealth leached away by these toll booths, and just having to pay a fortune for rent.
Yes, yeah. Oh. Well, Brian, I guess we can shift focus here. It wouldn't be, it's like it wouldn't be a tour of the Wall Street Journal if we didn't get a little update on the war in Iran. And the latest update from the good old WSJ today is that Trump says Hormuz is under U.S. control. Few ships are listening, and I'll just read the first two paragraphs here. This will give us a little flavor of how the disastrous war in Iran is currently going. And remember, this is the same Wall Street Journal that was trying to influence the way we see Mayor Mamdani's Peditier tax, and so this is the propaganda, the propaganda version of what's going on in Iran. Is this? President Trump said Wednesday that the U.S. has total control of the Strait of Hormuz. The reality on the water tells a different story. Ship tracking data shows just 14 vessels on Tuesday crossed a waterway that routinely handled more than 130 a day before the war. 11 of those ships took the route administered by Iran. Traffic was slow throughout July with an average of 26 crossings a day, and in June with 33 a day as renewed Iranian attacks on ships cut short a deal to open the strait. The disconnect shows how Tehran has managed to squelch traffic through the crucial energy choke point with relatively little military force, only a handful of drone and missile attacks on ships. Iran doesn't need to defeat the U.S. Navy. It just needs shipping companies, captains, and insurers to fear that defying it could put their ships at risk. So I guess that's the current state of play in a nutshell, Brian. The situation is completely out of control. The empire has no way to keep the waterway open. The might of the U.S. Navy is powerless in the face of a few key logistical considerations. Um, we remark on it every week, and I'm sure we'll be remarking on it for weeks to come. Absolutely wild. We are seeing a catastrophe of historic proportions here as the U.S. empire winds down.
Yeah, I mean, I see that the price of gas, which got down to like, I don't know, like maybe if you're lucky, under $3.90, is once again back over $4. And yeah, I mean, certainly the reprieve from Donald Trump saying that we are on, a peace deal is imminent. The effect of that, gets shorter and shorter each time, it seems.
Yes, and I note that bond yields are still remain elevated. Putting pressure on putting pressure on our ability to service existing debt, making taking out new debt expensive. Right, the yield on the 10-year T note is also what's linked to mortgages. So mortgages are getting are as expensive as they've been for years. We're just under 4.7% here. That's pretty high. So that's interesting to keep an eye on all the numbers here. I do think that I just can't believe the oil markets aren't substantially higher. I mean, I guess maybe the reported price in the oil markets could be the subject of some gamesmanship. So maybe that's the situation here. But I still can't believe that oil, both Brent and West Texas crude, is still trading in the 80s. I would have thought we'd be back to $100 a barrel by now. But like I say, maybe the published list price, like I don't think you could actually buy oil for the prices that they list on CNBC.com, for example. These are just like propagandistic, maybe more than they are actual reflections of the state of affairs on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, it is surprising that I don't know how you're able to get tickets to Florida for $190. But somehow the price of airfare has not gone like through the roof. I mean, I remember being excited to get plane tickets on JetBlue when they first started doing nonstop service from Portland to Orlando some 10 or 15 years ago. And the price somehow remains exactly the same.
Yeah, I remember thinking $300 was a good price for the Portland to Orlando and back tour. That was in like 2009. I thought that.
Yeah, and so I guess the crazy, maybe it's just the summertime pricing. Although I think that hapless Northeasterners do take summer vacations in Florida for some reason and try to go to the various theme parks and whatnot. But I can't imagine. I just don't understand the economics at all.
Well, Brian, I wonder if you had a chance to listen to Hunter Biden pop up on the Tucker Carlson program this week. I guess Mr. Biden was up here in Bryant Pond, Maine, making the rounds, doing his interview. I guess he's pimping a Substack or a book or something like that. Do you have a chance to listen to that?
I listened to about the first half hour or so. I mean, he's basically being glazed by Tucker Carlson. Although they have some interesting ideas that those nefarious like Israeli forces are responsible for dropping off his laptop, or I don't know, getting the contents of his laptop, or it sounds like maybe he did not actually drop his laptop off at that ill-fated repair depot. I mean, Hunter Biden, he doesn't seem handcuffed in the same way that a lot of establishment Democrat voices are. So he sounds quite a bit more reasonable. And, he actually did have a debate with Nick Fuentes for like an hour and 45 minutes that I listened to a couple weeks ago, which, I can't really remember too much about. But I like that Hunter Biden, for the most part, is able to say reasonable things. Although I remember hearing Joe Biden on The Daily Show like some 25 years ago or so with Jon Stewart, and he sounded like a reasonable person then. But I don't know, like despite Hunter Biden's attempts to sort of, I don't know, try to forge a new path for the Democratic Party. I'm not sure what his plan is. It sounds like it does not involve running for office. It would be pretty phenomenal if he could, because there's leaked pictures of Hunter Biden naked and, smoking a crack pipe. So that would be quite the turnaround. Although, I mean, it's a new era and Donald Trump's our president. He's obviously done a lot of crazy things.
Yeah, I right.
So I don't know. Those are some thoughts.
Yeah, well, yeah, so that was my big takeaway too, that he wanted to paint the laptop thing as some kind of a Israeli op. I don't really see what that gets him. I feel like this is all just a make my Substack popular tour or something like that. But I don't know, like Hunter Biden, this is the guy who, his brother got killed in a car crash, right? And I guess he got his brother's widow addicted to crack and then had an affair. I guess, is it really an affair if the man is dead? I don't know, but he hooked up with his dead brother's widow. I mean, just horrific. It got her addicted to crack. Absolutely crazy. And then the laptop from hell, of course, is the big story from the 2020 election cycle. And man, the thing that really sticks out in my mind was that letter to the New York Post. You may recall this, Brian, wherein 51 current and former intelligence officials, big names like Leon Panetta, former Secretary of Defense, put their names on this letter saying that the Hunter Biden laptop story has all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation. And then during like the debate, it was like during like the last debate before the, it was supposed to be this November surprise, the laptop from hell. But when the Donald brings it up, Joe Biden can just say, oh, yeah, well, our intelligence experts say that that's, Russian disinformation. And then they just move on, right? It's like they didn't have to get answered for it in the debate. And of course, apart from the depraved crack pipe smoking, which you referenced moments ago, Brian, the big news that was on this laptop from hell was Hunter Biden's involvement or his employment by the Burisma Energy Company out of Ukraine, where he had a no-show like job on their board or something like that. And the discussions and the emails on the laptop were like kicking 10% upstairs to the big guy, So the laptop, in addition to showing depraved acts of crack smoking, seemed to show that Hunter Biden, was involved in some kind of a pay-to-play political corruption scheme here involving a Ukrainian energy company. And, of course, Ukraine is now the center of one of two major centers of conflict in the world. So, yeah, man, I remember the 51 former intelligence officials who signed a letter to the New York Post saying this is definitely Russian disinformation. Right, I was already out by then when the media was reporting. Like I just knew that they wouldn't be doing this if they weren't lying. But it makes me think of the saying that the Hunter Biden laptop is the work of Russian agents. All right, is like it reminds me of the Russiagate of 2016, and that was really when I left NPR for good. We grew up listening to NPR, Brian. I'm sure you remember. I remember hearing about Premier Gorbachev and the collapse of the Soviet Union on NPR. And I followed them. The NPR was my joint up through the Iraq War, when they were uncritically repeating the weapons of mass destruction lies about Saddam Hussein and helped the powers that be send us into a disastrous war in Iraq. And then they had a bunch of mea culpas, and we apologized for that. And so it wasn't until 2016 that I finally turned off NPR for good. I remember being excited. I remember the night that Donald was elected in 2016. Claude Julien's Boston Bruins had pulled off a comeback against the Canadiens and won in overtime. We flicked over to the news coverage, and the Donald was winning against all expectations. And I remember being so upset about the Bernie Sanders betrayal in 2016 that I was delighted that Hillary Clinton had failed. And then the next day in the car driving to work, I was, listening to the NPR coverage. I was thinking, man, maybe I made a huge mistake here. NPR just wouldn't say things that aren't true. But it turned out that the Russiagate thing was like a total hoax. And it was like some kind of an excuse or something for Hillary Clinton losing to Trump. And so that's, it makes me think of my sad, sad divorce from NPR. But my divorce from NPR has brought me into the arms of the Breaking Points crew, whom you also referenced moments ago, Brian, the Emily Jashinsky and Ryan Grimm are the two alternate hosts. Crystal Ball and Sagar and Jetty are the two main hosts. And I've been I've been watching them as news since they ran the program on the Hill called Rising, and during the same 2020 election, they actually had a reasonable interview of candidate Andrew Yang, and so that's really what put them on the map. Like at that time, CNN was like putting up forgetting to put Yang entirely in the group of Democratic candidates. They were putting another Asian dude that wasn't Yang, up there, putting a picture of someone that wasn't Yang up there with his name. Just doing all kinds of dirty tricks to delegitimize the Yang candidacy. And I just appreciated Crystal and Sagar actually giving him a straight interview and not trying to substitute a picture of some other Asian dude for him. So anyway, yeah, that's what the Hunter Biden interview made me think about. This Israeli business, it seems like a really dubious to me, Brian. I assume you must agree based on your hearing of his interview over in Bryant Pond.
Yeah, I guess I'm unclear what the incentive is, because it seems like the Biden regime isn't especially unfavorable to the nation of Israel, and I'm sure they're quite unified. So I guess that part, it doesn't seem like they really got to. And it also doesn't seem like they actually discussed the idea of 10% for the big guy, or Hunter Biden's appointment to the board of Burisma in this interview with Tucker Carlson. Although I didn't listen to the whole thing, but I was looking at the timestamps and whatnot. I mean, did you hear anything about that on the interview?
Not. No, but in full disclosure, I didn't finish the last half of it.
I mean, part of the Hunter Biden laptop story is, well, back in 2020, the right, or at least the Donald Trump supporters, were all in on the Epstein story in a way that it really hadn't broken with the left until Donald Trump's 2024 campaign. And I guess there was this idea that there was child pornography or something on Hunter Biden's laptop, or I think maybe there was just some conflation going on, because there was also the Anthony Weiner laptop,
yes,
that supposedly had some insurance file on, and the chain of custody among police officers involved in the investigation. They all killed themselves, is what I understand, and I don't think it's really been refuted, but that's certainly the conspiracy theory. So there was this idea that the Hunter Biden laptop contained at least some kind of dark information, or maybe it just was, information on the Biden's dealings with the government of Ukraine, and obviously. Yeah, war with Ukraine, or the situation in Ukraine, was a big political issue back then, as we were trying to beat the war drums to get this proxy war going on with Russia over in the country of Ukraine. So yeah, I don't know. I just don't know what to make of it all. I guess I gotta finish the whole interview, but if the timestamps are to be believed, they did not address this matter at all, which I guess is kind of disappointing from Tucker Carlson. But there is the business, though, where Biden does seem like a more reasonable Democrat than most, but it goes back to what I was saying about Joe Biden sounding reasonable some 20 or 25 years ago on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart.
Man, Brian, I forgot about the Anthony Weiner affair. That is too funny. That is a good callback. You're right. There was another laptop from that same era, 2020. This Anthony Weiner, as we may recall, at the time he was the husband of Hillary Clinton's number one confidant and advisor, Huma Abedin. And I mean, this dude he just couldn't. I mean, this is a man he was I think he ran for governor of New York at one point. He was a New York congressperson. He put all this energy into this political career, right? Go through all the trouble, go through all that work, but he just couldn't stop texting those underage girls. Oh, he got busted once for it, and he just couldn't leave it alone, and he just had to do it again. I guess Abedin and him got divorced over it, but yeah, man, it's so funny that people it's like the Greeks always wrote about in their plays, whatever the engine is that drives Anthony Weiner to be a successful politician is the same engine that has him texting up 12-year-olds or 14-year-olds at 1 o'clock in the morning, and he just can't not do it. That's too funny. But yeah, I heard some. I can't remember exactly what was supposed to be on Weiner's laptop, but I mean, is that dude in jail? I mean, he got in a lot of trouble. That dude is persona non grata, has been this past 10 years or so. But yeah, it's interesting that he's also connected to the Democratic muckety mucks through his former wife, a certain Huma Abedin, who mentioned a longtime companion of Hillary.
Well, it's just a little, it's a little hard to like judge the whole situation now. I mean, now that we've been in this quagmire of Ukraine for 4 or 6 years, and I don't know, just given the spectacular failure of the Donald Trump administration, like just some corruption in Ukraine, it just doesn't like land the same way that it seemed to leading up to the Biden-Trump election. And yeah, I mean, the suppression of the laptop story just seems so blatantly corrupt at the time. But like right now, I guess I'm just not sure. It just doesn't. I'm not sure what's supposed to be so shocking about it, or at least now that Hunter Biden's out there making the rounds, it just doesn't seem. It doesn't have the same gravitas.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I'm wondering if this isn't just I don't want to be known as the man who was stupid enough to drop off my laptop with a bunch of videos of me smoking crack on it at a Delaware repair shop while my old man's running for president. I mean, maybe that's just what this is and nothing more than that.
All right.
Well, Brian, last thing on the docket for today. The last weekend, the Wall Street Journal had a lifestyle travel article that was near and dear to my heart, and I propose now to read this article to you. And I want to know if you agree with this idea. It certainly matches the lived experience of everyone I know who has visited Europe. So here we go. The article here is entitled "My Secret Diet is a Trip to Europe." The subheadline: Some Americans are convinced European food is better for their health and waistlines. After spending 5.5 weeks in Nice, France last summer, Maddie Renee dropped 3 dress sizes, going from an 8 to a 2. She stopped getting acne. She simply felt healthier. "My clothes were just falling off," said the 23-year-old from Sarasota, Florida. "I wasn't bloated. I didn't have brain fog. I wasn't constantly fatigued." Renee wasn't on a special diet during her travels. In fact, she was treating herself daily to gelato and centering carbs at every meal. She's since become an evangelist for eating the European way, documenting her diet of primarily pasta, cookies, bread, and full-fat milk and butter on trips to France and Italy for her 223,000 followers on Instagram. She's tried to replicate the experience in Sarasota by importing Italian pastas and flours and procuring French butter from specialty stores. For decades, research has extolled the benefits of a Mediterranean diet low in sugar, rich in fresh fruits and vegetables, and doused in olive oil. But some Americans are convinced that in Europe, they can eat whatever they want, feel great, and maybe even lose weight. The craziest thing is that I don't think I ate a vegetable the entire time, which is why the transformation was so shocking, Renee said. "Well, in the States, I avoid gluten and refined sugar, eating only protein and vegetables with very limited carbs." She walks about the same amount in Florida, on the beach and on her walking pad, as she does abroad. "It doesn't matter how many steps I take, it doesn't replicate how I feel in Europe." Bailey Kreinbrink, 28, a content creator in Atlanta, said she lost 50 pounds on a year while eating abroad. 50 pounds in a year while eating bread, pasta, and pizza in Italy. She also eliminated her joint pain, chronic fatigue, and digestive issues, she said. Her weight loss and health improvements started while in Modena, Italy, for 6 weeks in the summer of 2023. "On the last week, I ran a 5K and felt incredible with no shortness of breath or pain," she said. "For the first time, I was able to do something my body hadn't physically been capable of doing in 5 years." Before she left, She filled multiple bags with pesto, pasta, Parmesan, Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, balsamic vinegar, and salt, and made it back home before she returned to and made it last back home before she returned to Italy, this time in Florence in February 2024. She now splits time between the two countries, but her lifestyle, including how much she walks, stays about the same, she said. Kreinbrink turned her experience into a wellness retreat business where people travel to Tuscany with her to harvest olives for olive oil, make wine and craft cheese on the farm alongside local farmers. She also sells freshly milled ancient grain flour and other traditionally produced Italian foods through her company, Healthy Journey Through Food. Christy Levo, a custom cowboy hat and gift designer in Abilene, Texas, signed up for Kreinbrink's A Taste of Wellness in Tuscany retreat next May to address the bloating and fatigue she's experienced for years. I want to be able to have pasta and foods that I love that aren't going to make me need to take a nap, she said, of her reasoning for being open to paying about $4,000 for the retreat. Experts say there are differences between how the European Union and the US regulate food. The EU takes more of a precautionary approach, with certain chemicals used in pesticides banned because they might increase the risk of cancer or persistent pollution, said Cynthia Curl, professor and director of the Center for Excellence in Environmental Health and Safety at Boise State University. The US, though, allows certain chemicals as long as they are used at levels that haven't been proven to cause harm, Curl says. According to the FDA, it takes action if the agency finds that the level of a contaminant causes the food to be unsafe. Curl points out that the different countries in Europe grow food and process food differently. There isn't one type of European food, and despite the difference in regulatory approach here and there, food in Europe is also not definitively healthier than in the US. Erica Armida, a registered dietitian at Johns Hopkins Medicine, said that there are a few factors, including more intuitive and slower eating and fewer processed foods, that may be playing into claims that people feel better in Europe. I don't necessarily think it's the pesticides or any specific one ingredient that's making them feel better, she says. I think it's more of the overall lifestyle. There's more of a work-life balance where they can cook more and they're not necessarily always on the go and buying processed food. She counsels patients to focus on a well-rounded diet versus individual ingredients that may be in American food versus European food. Tatum Nzikwizi, who lived in Leiden in the Netherlands for about a year, said that during the time she had less acne and brain fog and noticed better digestion. I felt less gassy, she said. After she moved back to the U.S. to New Orleans, she gained 15 pounds within 2 months, she said. So she started incorporating the way she ate in Leiden in the U.S., such as eating less fast food, smaller quantities, and changing her grocery shopping habits, like buying whole rather than pre-chopped broccoli. That is such a small example about how it's a slower life and you have time to cut up your broccoli in Europe, she said. Everything was slower, which made how I ate more intentional. If I was going to be spending more time cooking, it was almost a guarantee it was going to be a healthier meal. Elizabeth Borgia, 36, a bakery owner in McKinleyville, California, also believes the European lifestyle, which includes a lot of walking and is less stressful, she said, plays a role in how she feels while there. On a recent 5-day trip to Terceira, Portugal in March, she said she felt less bloated and like her clothes fit better, even though she wasn't restricting her diet at all. I could eat pasta, I could eat fried foods, I could have gluten, she said. She only had to take Tums once after eating airport food. Well, that's the entirety of the article, Brian. So it's got like 3 or 4 people who testify that, things are definitely dramatically different in Europe. And sandwiched in between those testimonies, they've got one expert from the University of Idaho in Boise telling us that no, nothing's different here in America. It's all fine. All the food in Europe. It's not even one kind of food. But I don't know, man. This reads like propagandistic to me too. First question: when on your last trip to Europe, which was out to Prague a year or 2 ago, Brian, did you notice that the food made you feel better?
Yeah. Well, the food seemed a lot better and very cost effective, but I don't know how much the American exchange rate factors into that.
Well, I suppose that depends on which particular European polity you happen to find yourself in. But that was my experience every time I go to Europe as well. It's like it's like the food is better or more filling or more nutritious. I remember being in Greece and being surprised at dinner. Trace, my lovely fiance, who I already mentioned at the top of the pod, she and I we would get like just like a crusty bread, and like one of those Greek salads with the feta cheese on top, and that would be good enough for dinner. We would be actually find ourselves full. And it does seem like we walk more in Europe than we do here, but man, I think that the food is night and day. And I was amused at the way the Wall Street Journal wanted to, portray this phenomenon.
Well, it is funny that you got some, boots on the ground testimony from some average folks,
Yeah.
and then you have an expert asking you to deny the evidence of your eyes and ears. That's pretty classic. But I mean, I was just Googling, does Italy use different wheat than America in their pasta? And it says, yes, Italian and American pasta use different wheat. Italy passed a 1967 law requiring all dry commercial pasta to be made with 100% durum wheat semolina and water. In the U.S., commercial pasta blends softer, high-yield wheat strains and often uses enriched flours. And I mean, I think what it comes down to is they don't use that crazy Monsanto, glyphosate-drenched flour in all their products. And yeah, man, it's like a huge no-brainer. And we should probably get those imported pastas. It would be crazy if, eating bread was something that you could do here stateside, but it is, in fact, poison and to be avoided.
Yeah, you can't just go around casually eating the bread. You'll end up with colon polyps. Yeah.
Well, we are on the precipice of another NFL season, and we're going to be bombarded with all sort of colitis commercials featuring everyone's favorite medication, the Sky Rizzy. And I can't wait to watch Sky Rizzy commercials, the same one over and over and over for the next 6 months or so.
Yeah, you said it, Brian. That's hilarious. One has only to watch any NFL broadcast this season to be confronted with an array of drugs that are designed to help soothe the tender and sad remains of everyone's ruined rectums.
Well, you get like George Kittle, advertising, Little Caesars, and then the Sky Rizzy commercials for the inevitable colon polyps that are going to develop.
Well, okay, so I'm trying to recover from that joke. That was pretty good. So just the thing that sticks out to me in this article, if I could just recover from that, is like the way that we do business here in America is like, well, we don't ban any ingredients until it can be like proved in a court of law that these ingredients are harmful to people. Whereas in Europe, they proactively ban potentially harmful ingredients instead of waiting to find out if people get sick and only then trying to address the situation. And it really shows you our cultural priorities, like the hierarchy of things that are important. And here in America, profit is king and societal good comes second after profits. And that is why when you get off the plane in Europe, you can just eat their delicious food and just watch the weight fall off of your body. And man, it is the difference, I think, it could not possibly be more stark.
Well, I'd have to agree.
All right, Brian. Well, I see we're just about coming up on time here. So I think I will do the thing where I invite all of you out there in podcast land to come pay us a little visit at systemfailure.org. There you can enter in your email address and sign up to receive the weekly essays written by yours truly each and every Sunday morning right there in your inbox. Furthermore, if you'd like to get in contact with Brian or myself and let us know how many rectal dysfunction commercials you're going to plan on watching this football season, or let us know your experience with the superior nutrition on offer over on the continent, well, you can accomplish that on the About page at systemfailure.org, simply by clicking on the appropriate name. Okay, Brian, I will be back on Thursday with of course, the essay read, the short podcast. And then you and I will be back 1 week hence, of course, on the good old System Failure podcast. I suppose we will see you all then, folks. In the meantime, please have a fantastic week.
All right. See you, folks.